So I'm very happy to be here today with two of my colleagues at Panacea. I'm here on the one hand with Enrique Bermejo. He is a PhD in computer science and a researcher at Panacea. And on top of that, he is leading the Zibian Labs product line for criminalistic tools that we are developing. And our other guest here today is another colleague from Panacea, Maria Alejandra Gorte-Bonza. She's a forensic anthropologist and PhD student at Panacea. And she's also very much involved in, well, on the one hand, the development of the Zibian Labs products, but also the training we are offering together with that. I think I didn't forget anything. Very happy that both of you are here with me today. And yes, Enrique, if you want, feel free to start.
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you everyone for coming here today. Before going in depth with the product, I wanted to give you some context because here at Panacea we are researching in the field of facial comparison, and we realized that forensic examiners used to analyze uncontrolled images from CCTV or ATMs, or images that are not originally intended for biometric use. And the challenge they face is to determine if the image is suitable or not for the posterior analysis, either a facial recognition or a facial comparison with the morphological analysis. And the difficulty is not only on the image quality part, but also in that these decisions should be objective, repeatable, explainable, and defensible. Because we know that when image quality is poor, the reliability of the analysis is reduced, and this can lead to misidentifications or false exclusions. Right. And this is essentially a problem of subjectivity, because traditionally, and as currently recommended by FIQA guidelines, the facial image quality assessment relies on human expert judgment. And we know that with different experts having different criteria, this can lead to inconsistent decisions that can also affect the results of the identification process, because the results are not always as reproducible as we like. In the academic literature, they have an objective to reduce this subjectivity, and they have been recently proposing a series of methods, of artificial intelligence methods, that seek to replace this human judgment with consistent measurements. But the problem is that these methods rely on a score from a black box. And they are only effective in semi-controlled scenarios. So there are plenty of methods like this. They are participating in the challenges of niche trade quality and so on, and they are obtaining really good results. However, they are not applicable in our context. Also, we know that black box methods that produce only a single score have limited explanation. And in this context, the biometric community realized that they need a repeatable, interpretable, and transparent method to assess the quality of an image. In this regard, the subcommittee 37 of the ISO, that they are seeking for the standardization of the biometric technology, they promote a standard for quality assessment that focus on evaluating multiple dimensions of an image and making these dimensions measurable and interpretable. They formalize this standard in the ISO 29794-5. And with this, we have the FIQA implementation, that is the official implementation of the ISO. This stands for open source face image quality. It's being led by the German BSI and maintained by EULISA since 2024. But they have three use cases: for issuing ID documents, for biometric enrollment like the European Entry Exit System, and also for verification and recognition in an automatic way, like the pro images that they use at the border control. But These enrollment scenarios are very much different from a common forensic identification context, where the faces are not always so identifiable. Internally, the OFIC measures different quality components on different dimensions of the image. One of the dimensions is the camera and the environment, where they analyze the luminance, the illumination, the under or overexposure, the sharpness, or if the image has some kind of compression artifacts like JPEG. And in the dimension of the subject, they analyze if the person in the image has the eyes visible and open, if there is any kind of facial occlusion. They measure the inter-eye distance when they have the frontal images, and also measure the head pose of the person in the image. All these dimensions are combined into a unified quality score. But the result is not just this score. They have a more explainable and repeatable quality assessment. And we are basing on this idea. Internally, OFIC works through a pipeline of artificial intelligence algorithms that allows them to compute both the camera and environment measurements and also the status of the subject in the image. They have a facial detector, Lambert detector, facial segmentation, and also something that is called face parsing, where they can identify the regions of the face and label different regions of the face with the anatomical feature, like the nose, the ear, or the neck. This image presents an example of two images. This slide. We have one on the left, a clear image of Alejandra here, and on the right, more darker image. And these are the results of running OFIC over these images. On the left, we see an overall good score with 87 of unified quality score, measuring everything in the environment on the camera and in the subject. But the result in the right, we see a really low score. And we see what metrics impacted more this score. We see that luminance, underexposure, and sharpness had really bad results. So this impact in the quality score that we use in the end. So it's more transparent and explainable when reasoning why this image is not valid for their use case. Then, as I mentioned, we are doing research in facial comparison, and we realized that facial examiners would greatly benefit from integrating this kind of automatic facial assessment in their methodology, because this can help to making consistent decisions, having more reproducible results, and with this strengthen the forensic justification in court, but also help forensic teams communicate their decisions better across teams with intelligent analysts, investigators, or facial reviewers. Also, with having a score in the image quality sense when analyzing an evidence, this can be supported by computing the likelihood ratio to estimate the strength and reliability of the evidence. So this could also benefit the whole process. So with Zibian Labs facial image quality, we tried to solve this issue, and we built our application on top of it, enabling a new use case through assessing an image quality and also the suitability of the evidence when having unconstrained facial images. Because we know that facial examiners typically rely on a limited set of factors. They really perform a technical analysis where they overall assess if the images have sufficient details for processing a morphological analysis, and they are not used to analyze every single measurement like we do in OFIC, right? So we This is an example of the image before, where we see the internal results of detecting landmarks, segmenting the face, and parsing the regions in the face. And these are the 10 metrics that we think that can help with the technical analysis of the image. We are measuring the resolution, the compression, sharpness, illumination, over or under exposure, the dynamic range, but also the head pose of the subject, because we know that we are seeing more facial features with frontal head poses and limited visibility of features in lateral poses. All this also provides an overall view of the visibility if there is any kind of occlusion. And additionally, we are measuring the size of the head in pixels in the image, because this is also a technical constraint where police units measure the head size in the image. And in frontal images, they are measuring between Zibian and Zibian. And in lateral images, we are measuring between the Nasion and the Travian. So we have the peak head size in pixel. And for example, in the Spanish police, having a face, a head with less than 40 pixels in the measure is a cutoff for the posterior analysis. So this is also a fact view of the if the image can be processed later on. Our application works, it's really simple. So you can load an image, it performs automatic facial detection. And if there are many images in the many faces in the image, you can perform a manual selection over which one you are interested in. When you have selected one of the faces, we perform this automatic artificial intelligence guided technical analysis and obtain automatically the validation by linking the numerical scores that we saw in the previous image with a simple decision system with 3 labels. If the image is suitable for the comparison, have limited use, or is not suitable. And in the end, we can generate automatically a report in an editable form. And before doing a demonstration, I wanted to also introduce a dataset that we have been collecting the last few years. It's called IndexDye. With this dataset, we combine surveillance images with high-quality scans to perform our research in facial comparison. And we collect images to cover both real-world and control scenarios, indoors and outdoors, with different variability in facial expressions, head poses, or occlusions. And we are also measuring live the subject to camera distance, because we know that at further distances, at lower distances, we are seeing more impact on the facial perspective distortion, and this also can lead to misidentification. You can find more on the website of this dataset, and Alejandra is going to publish soon a paper with the technical methodology that we follow, so this can be also reproduced by other institutions easily. We have here some examples of the images we are collecting, and we are using these images for our research and for testing the application. And now I leave the room for Sebastian, that is introducing you as well.
Okay, thank you, Enrique. We have prepared a little survey because this is something completely new. We're working on the facial image quality assessment. So we would like, I assume I have like 50 experts here. So we would like to learn from you what you think about this and like where your challenges are. And also, if you follow the QR to the survey with your phone, for example, you can, at the very end, you have a chance to request a test version of the software we are now about to present. Just leave us your email address and we'll be in touch. So that is like the little benefit you get from like helping us out a little bit completing the survey.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. I will be presenting a few examples of different types of images and how the software performs evaluating those images. So this is the interface of the software. It's quite simple. Basically, you just have to add an image that you would like to evaluate the quality, and then you select it. And we have three tools here. So first one is the confidence on which it can detect faces. So for example, if you lower it too much, it may start detecting things that are not necessarily faces, like it detected something here. And if it's way too high, then it won't detect any of the faces. So usually it should be around here. You have to try and select and change it a little bit to see how it can detect the faces that are on the image. And then you can see that this is an image with a lot of people. So you can select a specific face that you would like to evaluate. So for example, I will select this one, and then you see that it turns yellow. So you can see which of the faces you're analyzing. And on the right, you can see the score that the software is giving to the different like criteria that needs to evaluate in order for an image to be considered as valid, invalid, or limited for it to be used in facial comparison. So for example, here we can see that the resolution, it's mainly going to be the same for all of the faces because they're all in the same image. But for example, we can see that some things may change, such as illumination or the head pose. So I will show you, for example, this one other. You can see that the illumination starts dropping down because this person is a little bit hidden behind someone else, and also it's creating some shadows. So these kind of things may vary, as well as the head pose, for example, or for example, this case as well, the head pose also changes because it's slightly angled. And there is something to note, and is that this kind of softwares, because of the data, the origin of the data might create some biases. So for example, usually it may be fed with a specific population, and sometimes have more issues identifying or analyzing different populations. So for example, this case, it creates a very low score for underexposure in comparison to what it should be, but it's given to the population affinity of the individual. So this is important to keep in mind. Then you're also able to zoom in and zoom out on the image and to rotate the image. I will show you a couple more examples. So we have this other image in which we can see that the performance has deemed this result as invalid. And so we can see the reasons why it gave out that result. Mainly it's because of the underexposure. So these scores may be altered due to different reasons. So for example, if there is a resolution under 2 megapixels, then it may lower down the scores. So for example, on this image, we can also see that the head is hidden because it has an occluding object, which is the cap, and it also creates some shadows. And this can alter as well the way the algorithm performs. This may be an image that could be deemed valid, more like limited actually, but there is a big portion of the face that is hidden, so it would be very complicated to work with it. And Enrique,
in this case, it's because of how the underexposure metric is computed, because it's measuring the dark pixels in the image inside of it, and they are working on this, and we know that because we build this on top of it, we know that this will change in the future, and this will provide better results. But the important thing here is that we have these decision-making labels between suitable, not suitable, and limited, and the expert has the final decision on this, if this image is valid or not. So this can be overridden by the expert, and we see no problem at the moment with this because we build the application to take this into account.
Thank you, Enrique. And yes, you can actually, if the expert decides that this may not be the result that they are expecting, they can change that here on the result. They can add it as valid or invalid, or even within the same specific criteria. It could be suitable, limited, or not suitable. And another case would be this image that we see that the values are also quite low. For example, the underexposure, but this makes a lot of sense because of how many shadows there are on the face in the image. So it would be very difficult to work with it. And also the visibility, it's lower due to how many shadows and also occluding objects and other reasons. And the resolution of the image also plays an important role when the analysis is performed. And that's why it's giving an invalid result to this image. And our last example, it's more, for example, a real case. So we have 4 different suspects, and we can vary different things such as the confidence level, and then now we can detect a different face here, which belongs to this individual. So we can go through each of them in order for the software to analyze how valid or invalid these images may be for a facial comparison. So for example, we can go over each of them and see what how things should vary. So for example, the sharpness of this image, it's a little lower, or for example, this one, that the illumination also plays an important role on how this image is being assessed. Or for example, this one, how the sharpness and the illumination may go a little bit higher. So, sorry. We can also zoom in and start seeing how the faces look, and then select which face we want to create a report. Because that's another thing that we can do, is we can generate a report, and it will be a Word document that could be edited, and that it can be added to, for example, the different case files that the expert may use. It can be added to that. And just give me a second because my computer is a little bit slow today. Okay. And now we open the report. So this is how the reports look like. It has just a standard font, and this is it selects the whole image. It shows the entire image that we have used, and then it shows the selected face which we decided to analyze, and it gives us this table in which we can see each of the features and criteria, and then the score it gave to each of them, and finally the result of the assessment of the whole image. In this case was valid. And if Enrique, maybe there's something that I'm missing, feel free to join in.
I think that's everything. You can also edit and put your any kind of observation that you have on the image, and you can edit that directly. So with the example that I showed, we saw that there is some kind of demographic bias in the FIQA, the BSI just published a few months ago an analysis on how this worked, and this image is representative of how the skin tone bias works on different metrics. So they are confident that the new version that they are addressing in the future, that we expect this to be released soon, the FIQA 2.0, they will solve most of these issues. But in the meantime, we implemented this human in the loop thing that we discussed, that because the expert have to oversight the results of an AI and can disagree with the automatic score when it fails. So we expect that this new version solves most of the issues that we saw today. And then we go again to the link of the survey, and you can ask us some questions. I see there are some in the chat already.
Yes, there's a number of questions. Well, first of all, thank you to both of you. So the first question is, we're moving up a little bit. With the two images of the female you had, where one was green and one was red, could you average out these numbers and compare this to an opinion scale to determine the highest level of opinion you could provide? Well, okay, we're doing that. Exactly.
Yeah, with FIQA, you could do that with all the metrics, but you have to determine that, take into account that some metrics are more have more impact on the accuracy, on the identification process, on the visibility of facial features. If you aggregate everything, you will get something related to the unified quality score that will give you some informative value, but may lower the scores if you have one single metric with some kind of error or backlash. And one thing also that you have to take into account is that this only works with really portrait pictures of a subject, an individual. This will not work directly with surveillance context. So this is why we implemented this tool.
Okay. We basically have two other questions that are related to the ears. Does the assessment process include the ears as a feature?
So internally, we are able to detect the ears if the image is semi-frontal. So we decided not to include this feature, but to have an overall view of if the visibility of the general visibility of the facial features. So you are seeing within this score if there is any kind of occlusion, if the pose is lateral, this visibility should be around a score of 50. So the expert have to decide if the score is low, really low, but you have a visibility of a really identifiable feature like the ear, you should take over the score and reason that, okay, this has a lot of occlusion in the face, but as I have the one identifiable measure, I should deem this image as suitable for the morphological analysis, for example. So this is part of the human judgment that should be in the decision-making process.
Okay, thank you. I think this answers both questions regarding the ears. We have another question from Nicholas. That was actually a speaker here a while ago. So he's asking, how did you measure the image quality factors, like, for example, resolution, compression, sharpness, etc.? And what thresholds were selected for what was suitable or not for use? And what distortion is considered and how?
Yeah, we have tuned manually, we have tuned the decision-making labels. But in the software, we also have a mini tool. I mean, it's configuration options. It's not integrated yet, but where you can select, let me show you my screen. But you, the expert, can also select the limits of which kind of a score for each metric results in which label. If this is suitable, limited, and not suitable. So we have also this that you can configure for each one of the metrics this range of this threshold of suitability. Regarding the quality factors, we rely completely on how OFIC is computing the measurements, because we think this is a really good solution. And you can find online the report that they have describing for each measurement, for each metric, which the process of measuring this. For example, the overall underexposure, they segment parts of the region between the landmark in the face, and they measure the histograms between the white pixels and the black pixels. So they perform some kind of histograms. They normalize the histograms and they average them. And this metric is computed like that, for example. In this case, regarding distortion, I think they have already analyzed different methods that detect distortion, but they haven't integrated one metric yet in this version, the 1.2. We hope that version 2.0 have some kind of distortion metric. At the moment, they only compute the sharpness between the borders of the image.
There's a follow-up question from Nicholas. Basically, it's asking just to confirm, so the QFIC does the measurements filter. Yes, that's correct. All right. Okay, I was already closing the session, and we got a little bit distracted. Thanks again for coming today, and well, yeah, feel free to reach out to us. Everybody have a great day. Thank you so much.